Welcome to the Travel Think Tank on the Hub. This is the place where the travel industry is together under one roof. I'm your host and co-founder of the Hub, Pat Miller, and soon you'll meet my co-founder and travel expert, Tom Brousseau, and we are fired up today. Tom and I have had lengthy discussions in the last 48 hours, and we're ready to collaborate and create a new mission. Tom came up with the idea of how are we working together to collaborate and carve out a path to return to prosperity, also known as when the hell are things going to get back to normal? Because that's what we all want to have happen. So on the call today, I'm going to throw out some questions. Questions need answers. So we're going to give Scooby snacks to the people that start talking and jumping in with their thoughts today, because if today works well, it's going to be one big collaborative workshop, not your boring old generic webinar. But as I mentioned, Tom is totally on fire with what we're going to talk about. So we're going to have Tom come on and give us just the overview, and then we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to get down to business. So Tom, lay it on him and let him know what you're thinking.
Okay. Yes, no, absolutely. And I really want to, once again, talk about the Hub as really a collaborative place where we all come. And this whole thought process came out of last week's think tank. And our friend Nolan Flynn, who was on the call last week, and Monica Carnes, we ended up having a very somewhat unexpected conversation, the way that things went. And it just spurred a thought to me that, over the past few months, everyone's been working extremely hard. The amount of activity, the amount of webinars and all the different things that have been happening, is exhausting. And, but the fact is that while there's lots of information being shared and everyone's working really hard, there's really not much action. And so as we look at things, we know that, the agents, the suppliers, our travel trade companies, the consortia and the host, everyone's been working so hard, to try to communicate and educate and do all the things that are necessary. But the piece that I feel is missing is that there's no plan of action. I was on a webinar the other day, some very talented, very smart people. And when the call was over, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what the plan was, and I didn't know where we were going and how that was going to expedite, our return to prosperity and our ability to recover as an industry. So I talked to Pat about this, and we really got into this. And by no means, this is absolutely no criticism, because, like I said, everyone's doing their very best. But my thought process is that, we need to pull this all together, because everything is very fragmented. Everyone is sort of running in 100 different directions. And the thought was that, could we take a leadership role, all of us together, to pull together a shared vision, to pull together shared facts that we all agree upon? There's all kinds of different research. The travel trades are doing research. The individual agencies are doing research. Big research companies are doing it. But what are the shared sets of facts? Does anybody know? I certainly don't. I've heard bits and pieces of it. And so from that, what is our vision? What do we all need to do? When does it need to happen? And so if you read my email this morning that, just to kind of promote and ask everyone to be on this event, that was really what it was about. And, we very much realize that there's no one size fits all answer to this. This is a very, very complex problem. But at the same time, is it possible that we could identify and work together to come up with some specific tactics or some strategies or some things that we can all agree upon, that we can do together, whether we're an agent, a supplier, or a destination, and do it in such a way that it helps at least many of us. The chances of it helping all of us, that's pretty lofty. But can we get to a better place if we have a strategic game plan or an initiative that acts as an umbrella for a bunch of shared ideas and tactics that we can all work from? And, obviously we're all individual businesses, we're all individual entities. We're in a capitalist system, right? And so there's no expectation that, there's trade secrets or that we don't still have competitive aspects, because we most certainly do. But at the same time, is there a way by which we can pull some of these things together, understanding all the different elements to come up with a cohesive plan? And so that's what this is about. That's what the Return to Prosperity initiative or our mission is all about. And, that ultimately is what the hub is all about in the first place. That whole idea is what spurred the beginnings of the hub. It just took us a month or so to get to that point and to utilize Think Tank as the method by which we could pull this all together. So what I envision happening, and Pat has some more information to share, is that what we want to do is turn Think Tank into a workshop. And that means that we're going to divide it up into the individual elements of the plan. Like I said, what are the shared facts? How do we build and instill consumer trust and confidence? How do we overcome obstacles, to start our consumer messaging? Whatever it might be, there's a ton of different opportunities there for us to pull through the best ideas from this group and build it into a plan. So that's really what I'm fired up about. Pat and I have had a lot of conversations about this. I actually talked to Nolan about it last night. Talked to John Tarkowski a little bit about it to get his advice, having, with the significant amount of experience that he has in the industry, and some others. And I think it's a very good use of our time and energy. And I think it's a very good purpose for the hub.
So let's set the stage then, okay? Because we are not a consortia, because we are not a supplier, because we are not an agency, we can work on behalf of everyone. So that's why we're doing this. That's the first unique thing. The second unique thing is today we're going to take in all of the information we can and then try and put it into an actionable plan. And then we're going to get to work on it. And everything that we create is going to be done with the idea of how can we do work that benefits all the agents or all the suppliers or both. So that's where our framework comes. So if today is successful, we're going to get a lot of input. And we can't get a lot of input until we shut the hell up. So we're going to do that now. So I've got you on Brady Bunch view here. We all are familiar. We're all old enough. Nolan, you're probably not old enough. Everybody else is old enough to know Brady Bunch view. So raise your hand if you're going to say something today. Raise your hand if you're going to jump in and contribute. I should be seeing everyone raising their hand that they're going to jump in and contribute today. I see you. Oh, gee, John held up 2 hands. All right, good. So we're back to speaker view, and let's do this. If you start a brainstorming session, and I've done a lot of them, I've led a lot of them, they are not effective if you don't set a couple of guardrails. Now, Tom has done a great job outlining why we're going to do this. I want to add one more context to it. Our scope for this is going to be the next 6 to 8 months. So basically, until next spring, what can we do as a collective? Okay? Because if we say, what are we going to do in the next 2 years? Well, that's going to be a long and winding road. So that is our framework. The next piece of information we want to collect. So we want to hear from agents and suppliers. All right. So I'm going to ask a question, and then someone's going to drop into the chat that they have a comment, and I'm going to bring them on screen, and we're going to start this conversation. We need to hear from you. How would you define back to normal? What are the activities that you will see that make you feel like, yes, this is how it should be? Now, of course, people will be booking stuff. We know that. But do you have any metrics? Do you have any behaviors? Do you have any observations that you'll notice and feel like, oh, okay, this is what I mean when I mean back to normal? So drop into the chat if you want to jump in. There's a Scooby snack waiting, a secret Scooby snack. I'm so old today with Brady Bunch and Scooby snack, but I got a Scooby snack waiting for someone who's going to go first. How would you define back to normal? Lori Gold, the newlywed, you get the Scooby snack for jumping in. How would you define back to normal, Lori?
Well, I don't know if I'm the only Canadian on here right now, but back to normal would be like maybe one booking, or maybe anything. I mean, I'm so far away from normal. Like, it's just completely, I don't even know what to say. I mean, I have like zero on the books. So Canadians aren't traveling. My clients aren't Canadian. So, back to normal, I mean, would be just having trips booked and people, even inquiries, like people aren't even inquiring. So I think it's for Canadians specifically, and I'm not sure how many Canadians are on the hub, but it's going to be a very long time compared to Americans. So it's just, I can't even imagine when that will be.
a stream of inquiries, it's a really good thing that we can count on right there, because inquiries lead to bookings. Jennifer
Yeah.
Waldron, you've got something? Go ahead.
I feel for you, Lori. I know you and I have discussed travel out of Canada. I think traveling to a lot of Caribbean destinations would be nice. I've had to rebook many travel reservations for even Hawaii. I have probably a half dozen reservations currently for Hawaii that I've had to rebook. And then I would probably just say a steady paycheck.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds so almost petty as a travel agent, but a steady paycheck would be kind of nice. As a single mom, I do raise a son, and that would be nice. Another thing to be back to normal is a response from our tour operators in a timely manner. When we send out an email, these auto responses, I understand that everybody's on short hours or limited times in their offices or whatever, but it would be kind of nice to get even just a response and saying, we're working on it. I know ALG let off a lot of people, but we had an amazing rep here in Oklahoma and they let her go. And now we don't even get responses. So just getting responses back. And that's not just one. It's across the board. So I think that would be my top three.
And the language like a steady paycheck is beautiful, because this community is for the professionals, right? And we can all relate with the idea of, I want to get back to a steady paycheck. This is the program for agents and suppliers. So that's totally welcome within here, not petty, totally the thing that I'm listening for as we try and build the language around this program. Nolan Flynn, you've got something. Go ahead, pal.
I would say just the way back to normal is a strong amount of consumer confidence. Right now there is none. And if anybody says, oh yeah, people are really, the vast majority travels, no, they don't. You could go and look at TSA numbers online and it's like a fraction of what it once was. And I think like consumer confidence is the key to getting back to normal, but that comes from people being financially stable to travel, and also considering health safety, because right now, the way the United States adopted this pandemic, we have people afraid of their own shadows. It's crazy. And along with that, in order to get to that consumer confidence, we also need a strong desire for people to travel. We need people to, and I'm sure they are, get stir crazy, because at the end of this, we will get out of this, but we need the consumer confidence to let that be the starter's pistol. So
well, and the language that you've shared is great, and maybe we could agree that TSA traffic counts is one of the objective metrics that we could keep an eye on as something that we're saying as that starts to go up. That could be a part of our discussion as we see the milestones throughout the program. Do you think that would be fair?
Yeah. I check the link every morning. Michelle Payette at Playa Resorts, she sent me it maybe about a month ago, and she's like, this is what I look at every day. It's really addicting. And now I'm on it. Every single day I take a look at it. So.
Can you, if it's okay with you, would you mind posting that as a post inside the hub? That would be really great to share that information.
Sure.
Susan, you dropped into the chat here. Can you share what success or back to normal would look like for you?
Well, recently the phone really hasn't been ringing. We're still processing, refunds for people. But today I had 3 inquiries, and actually someone came into my home office, which is next to my house, so I'm not in my house. And they're looking for 2021 travel. They, were telling me today that they had 3 vacations planned this year. They all, obviously were canceled. So they're really itching to go somewhere. And, it's great because I was able to show them pictures from resorts when I was in destination. Now, I know Jen was down in Mexico, and I love to follow when people are traveling. I myself right now are a little hesitant to travel. I have a daughter that's on the front line, so it jeopardizes her ability to go to work if I'm out of country. So seeing people in destination is really important to me. So following Jen when she was down at Unico and some other different places, it's great to see that and to be able to show clients that, yes, people are traveling. So I think that, it's been, 6 months now, and people have sat back, but they're itching. They love to travel. They want to get out there. And I was so happy today to get 3 inquiries, so I'm going to work them.
But hey, good for you and good luck.
Yeah.
And that's a great reminder of sharing photos and videos while we're on property is a great way to raise up everybody inside the hub. So thank you for that. Jennifer drops into the comments and shares that maybe a stop of refund requests would be another thing that we'll all kind of feel as, no, I don't need to rebook. Yes, I am confident to go. Tanya Murphy, you had something. What would you like to share?
It's I guess more of a conglomeration of a couple things that have been said, but one of the things that will put us back to normal is not only being able to get the response time back to normal from our suppliers, but yeah, the whole backlog of the refunds and stuff. That is also a thing that's going to help consumer confidence, because one of the things that's really not helping is when people see other people online saying, I'm still waiting for such and such from Carnival or whoever from March or from April, and it is late August. That does nothing to help consumer confidence at all, right? Yeah. So, and I am sensing I feel like people were very, very patient, most of them, for a very long time, but it's 5 and 6 months later now. And I am sensing that patience is wearing out and wearing thin. And and I am always empathetic to the epically big mess that this created, it's got to get fixed. And when we are still, having things be delayed and delayed and delayed again, that doesn't do anything for my confidence. And I can't imagine what it does for that of the consumer. So that will be one measure of getting back to normal, is when we're through the backlog. There is still a humongous backlog.
Yeah. You touched on another thing as well that I don't want to gloss over. We will feel back to normal when we feel back to normal, when we have our confidence and our mojo back again. And some of these defeating things that just weigh on us and weigh on us, it's almost independent of what's happening in the industry. It's like, not only can I not get bookings, I also feel like crap because I can't get bookings and things are canceled and it's a pain, and it all kind of just is one big ball of frustration. So that's really great. So we want to make sure that we're hearing from agents and suppliers. John, you've got something to add. How will you know that things are getting back to normal?
Well, I think of a couple things. I mean, what I wrote down, I think the first thing would be, and I agree with what everyone has said so far, but there's just this lingering uncertainty that every day brings, right? I think when the unknown, you wake up every day not knowing what's going to happen. For us, I think removing that uncertainty of what the future will look like, even in the short term, what is the next 60, 90 days going to look like? Having some sort of hope of something's going to turn. I think that's just some sort of an indicator. And it kind of goes back to the consumer confidence, it goes back to the industry confidence really as a whole. And I think the other thing I wrote down, just from the supplier's perspective, back to normal is being able to actually physically leave the office. I mean, we're salespeople. We're not meant to do this virtually. It doesn't work. We can do it. It's wearing, as much as it's wearing on you, I can tell you it's wearing on my entire team. They don't like it. So I think some sort of normality is they can actually go see you. They might social distance and wear masks, but getting out of the office is huge. I'm going somewhere in September to an event for the first time in 6 months, and I almost forgot how to fill out my travel request form. It's been so long, but that to me is a sign of back to normal.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Sarah, I want to give you the last word on back to normal, because then I'm going to move to a different place. But Sarah Klein said that she had something to share. So Sarah, what do you have to say about when back to normal will feel right to you?
I have to say the last couple of days, I felt like a real travel agent again.
Hey.
I was like, these weddings are popping and bookings are coming in. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like, this is how it's supposed to feel again. And then today I got a bunch more cancellations this morning. So it is still riding the ride, but the vibe has changed tremendously, I think, here. And just 10 minutes ago, our governor came out and announced that our schools could open. And I think for my particular state, this area, that may change the whole vibe and the whole perception of like, if our kids can go back to school, then maybe we can travel, then maybe we can set some plans, because no one knew what Thanksgiving break was going to look like, or Christmas break, and all these hotels that were trying to do this like work and study from paradise. I think a lot of us were just like, yeah, I just don't know if that's going to work, because everything was still up in the air. So I feel a shift.
Now, that's a really good point. So refresh everyone if they're not familiar with where you're at. What state are you
I'm in Maryland.
In Maryland. So Maryland's going to allow the kids to go back to school 5 days a week, full in?
Probably not, and it's going to be up to each county, but
Right.
just the governor just came on and was like, we're at a low enough level. If the county permits it, kids can go back to school in some form or fashion, which I have one kid crying and one kid jumping up and down. But I think that may change the perception of we can go back to some normal life, and we can start to make plans, because as neat as that whole idea of take your kids to the Caribbean for 2 weeks and work and go to school,
Right.
it's not realistic. So I don't know, that just kind of got me excited about, okay, we might have like a schedule to normalcy.
Well, and that takes us to the next topic I wanted to go to. So thank you for being such a smooth operator. Before I get to it, I want to jump in with what Rose Gray put in the chat so people that are watching the video get it. Back to normal will be when more countries accept U.S. citizens to come in. So Rose, that's an excellent point, and hopefully you'll jump in later in the conversation, because we definitely want your input. Where I want to go with it next is similar to what I mentioned to Nolan, is what are some of the things that will happen that we can point to and say, aha, kids can go back to school. Aha, there's a vaccine. Aha, herd immunity. Is there anything we can think of and allowing more U.S. citizens that maybe don't come to mind for Tom and I that you're watching or listening for, or you think your clients are watching and listening for, so they go, oh, yeah, it is okay to travel again? And maybe that was just such a perfect list that there is no further discussion required on that. That's always possible. And Lori comments, yes, dropping the 14-day mandatory quarantine. You're absolutely right, Lori, because a 1-week trip becomes a 3-week tour, and that's no good. So yeah, that's excellent. All right, so let's think about that as we move on, because those are the types of things. Now, as Tom and I are starting to build this program, you've given us some really good imagery and positioning of what success looks like, what back to normal looks like. Because if we just went into a dark room and came up with the idea all on our own, we might not be saying it in a way that all the agents and suppliers can understand what normal looks like. So that's really helpful. The other part is, what are some of these signposts that we're going to be watching and listening for? That's also very helpful. So Nolan, I want to come to you as we kick off this next portion, because it was really your input last time we had this meeting that got us thinking about this. So you really are the father of invention here. What would you say from the research that you just did? What do we know about the market and the travelers right now? What do we know about where their head is at? And of course, we'll open this up to everyone else, what they're hearing from their customers. But Nolan just got done doing research. So can you give us like the Post-it note overview of where their head is at right now?
Let me pull it up. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see.
And we will add one more thing while you pull it up. Sarah Klein is
Please
bringing
do.
up
Thank
another
you.
idea, which is great. The employers are changing their quarantine rules. That will be something that we will watch for. So that's good. And Randy, you can't say something about being in Texas and being different and not bring on yourself on the screen, because now we got to hear why it's different in Texas and what the thought process is that's different for all of us, because we want to make sure we're listening. What do you mean?
Sorry about that. I thought I was on the screen.
No, it's
I'm
all
on
good.
an iPad. I'm on an iPad for the first time, so it's kind of messing with me a little bit.
No worries.
Is the audio okay?
Yeah, it sounds great.
All right. What I mean by that is I don't know, here in Texas, I think the demeanor is that we've had about enough of it and we're getting the hell out of Dodge. Back on July the 19th, I had a 91 person group that traveled out of Texas down to Mexico. I'm leaving tomorrow morning with a 48 person group. And it's actually a good group. It's called the Corona Breakout Party. And and we actually went up for sale with this back in April. Whenever all this stuff first started, I just put on the books. I went and blocked rooms and I said, we're going to have a Corona Breakout Party. And so I've got 41 people going this weekend. When I also put a note in there, said something about you got to be proactive. One of the things that we did is we went and called some of our larger realtor offices here in the area where I live, and we took them sweet rolls one morning from our company and just said, hey, we want to bring everybody some sweet rolls and let y'all know that we're here for you guys. We turn around and every week we take and we call 30 or 40 of our clients and we, just touch base, is everybody healthy? What's going on? I mean, I think if everybody will take a proactive approach and not necessarily go after the business, but go after building the relationship, I think you will not only see that you'll start getting more bookings, but I think you'll also see that you start getting some of the stuff that you didn't used to get. Maybe it's just that weekend trip to San Antonio or that weekend trip up to Fort Worth that, it doesn't pay much, but it keeps your name out in front of them and it gives you $30 or $40 worth of commission.
That's great. That's great. And Randy, thanks. And where did you say you were going with the trip, the breakout group?
This Corona Breakout will be at the El Dorado Royale down in
There you go.
Cancun.
Absolutely. All right, great. Thanks for jumping in. Nolan, did you find what you got?
Yeah. So, and I'm actually gonna look to, where are you, John DiOrio? Where'd you go?
He said he had to jump off. He had a 3 o'clock call, 2 o'clock.
Well, I'm going to
Pacific time
speak
call.
for him for a little bit. So I remember back when Virgin Voyages was like coming out and everything. I was like, how are bookings? How are bookings? And he's like, well, we've actually done a lot of research with that. And with a 4 and 5 night cruise, people book more last minute dependent on the length of travel they're traveling for. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that. And as soon as he told me that, I'm like, all right, well, I just want to see what our office does, So at the end of the year, we run a bunch of reports. I spend the last year or the last week in the year just running all these reports on when people book their travel. And year over year, I have found that, at least at our agency, we have a lot more of a stronger push for last minute bookings. And I would say last minute is booking 0 to 3 months prior to getting out of Dodge. So with that, I think it's really important to have a bit of a strategy behind what we're selling. If we're selling a longer trip, it's not a good idea to advertise that last minute because you're ready to, the borders are open or something like that. So when we asked the question in a survey that we did at our office, surveying all of our client base, all of the people that follow us on Facebook, and we asked as many people as possible to take and distribute the survey. We asked the question of, with anticipation of a COVID-19 vaccine for global use in late fall, early winter 2021, when do you think the earliest you will be ready to travel again? And the number one answer was spring of 2021. So with that, that kind of gives us an inkling of all right, well, so if if all the dominoes align the way they should, this fall should look really, really good. For consumer confidence and stuff like that. But then it's also we got to strategize and be well, if everyone's really ready to travel in the spring, what are we selling in the spring? If it's 3 months or less, we got to make sure that it's, quick trips, not a 14-day river cruise in Europe, because unfortunately people just don't plan that way. So that I think is really, really important as we adjust back to this new normal, or just the back to normal. Where the consumer confidence is through the roof.
Those two things that just have been brought up back to back, though, could give us a big part of what we're trying to put together. The first thing being, no matter what's going on in the outside world, is only and always about relationships. And the second thing being understanding the booking window that you're in and what you're putting in that booking window. So if we're talking about February right now, Should we be doing 14-day travel trips on the Rhine? No, we shouldn't, because it's too far, it's too close for
Mhm.
that. So what should we be talking about? So that's a great piece of information. I'm curious from the other agents and suppliers on the call, what else are you hearing from customers? And jump into the chat if there's something you would like to share, because this data collection, this, even if it's anecdotal, is super valuable for the hub to collect and share so we can have the wisdom of the crowd, if you will. And while we get some comments in the chat, Nolan, is there anything else in the survey that you thought jumped out to you about where they're thinking and what they're thinking right now?
Yeah, I'll give you some news. So we asked the question, of course, about cruising, because we know at the beginning of this pandemic, that was easily the sector of the industry that got hurt the most. So we just wanted to ask the question, I mean, as people in the Midwest, we're not like strong cruisers like we are on like, you know, East and West Coast, but we wanted to ask the question like, well, how comfortable are you with cruising? So the first question we asked is, well, first, have you ever been on a cruise? That was the most important question. And out of the people that responded, 62% said they have. And then in addition to that, we asked just those people that have been on a cruise, how comfortable they are cruising after this pandemic. And we had a total of 55% saying that they're either uncomfortable or very uncomfortable. So that was pretty big. And then like the second largest was another 22% that was like, I'm not sure, I'm not uncomfortable, I'm not uncomfortable. But definitely not like a strong, overwhelming sense of people being comfortable cruising. And I think that's something that we obviously kind of anticipated coming out of this. And the big thing is like we haven't seen any, you know, large ships launch. And with that, that is, you know, that is a burden to consumer confidence. So that's just another piece of data that we found that we thought was pretty interesting. And it's like, well, how do we, you know, bring back the confidence of cruising? I mean, it's huge. Everybody does it. I mean, like that used to be the way of travel, and then it evolved to other things. So
Yeah.
I just think that's a really important thing that we got to keep in our minds, because it's not something that's going to go away. It's just something we got to learn how to bring back.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Nolan. Susan, what do you have? What are your clients telling you right now?
A lot of them are, you know, waiting for a vaccine. I mean, do I agree with that? I don't know. I never get the flu shot. I don't know if I'm going to get the vaccine, but I have friends saying, I'm not traveling until that vaccine comes out. I don't know. And then I hear others saying, we're not going to plan our travel until after the election.
Really?
So-
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know. You know, people,
They just who knows?
they think that the mask is going to go away on the next day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. Sarah Klein, what are your clients telling you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, I was muted. You know, there's not a general consensus, honestly, all over the place. I just have a group that are like, we just want to go. Then others are just shopping. So no, I really haven't heard much about the actual vaccine. So I think people are really just all over the place.
Okay. Tom, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to, you know, what Susan said is a great example of what I talked about at the beginning in terms of like the collaborative planning and so forth. And that is, you know, if indeed the consumer sentiment is that people are waiting until after the election to book their trips, well, shouldn't we be planning for that? You know, shouldn't we be looking at if there is indeed pent-up demand that could become available to us and people are going to be willing to book, you know, on or around November 15th, well, shouldn't we have a plan for that? Shouldn't we have some marketing and merchandising and a thought process that says, hey, we think that there might be a post-election bump. How about if we find a way to really leverage that and take advantage of it? So that's kind of the essence of what I talked about at the beginning of the collaboration, and just the thought from Susan on that one little nugget. There may be a whole bunch of people that agree with that, and there may be an opportunity for us all in that post-election time frame. And so we better be ready and have something ready to roll if indeed that is the case.
Well, there's some great commentary going on in the chat between Molly and Jennifer about vacation shaming. And Molly shares that one of her clients had a cancellation forced upon her by being shamed by her parents. And I'm sure that that's not the only time that's happened, Molly. And, Tom, I want to follow up on the type of thing that the hub can do, because me being the internal optimist, always thinking positively and hoping that we're doing what we can to arm you, there's going to be an event that's bigger than all of us, in which the majority or many of the folks in our audience say, okay, boom, I think John said it, starter's gun, here come the phone calls. Like, it's going to be a vaccine, it's going to be herd immunity, it's going to be the election, it's going to be something where a portion of our audience is going to start believing it's okay to travel again. And when that happens, if we've been doing a good job maintaining our customer relationships, I have a feeling that our phones are going to be Christmas trees. That's what I anticipate. My question is really twofold when it comes to our path to prosperity. What can we do now to keep ourselves going and prepare for when that moment comes? Because one way or the other, we know from customer sentiment, everybody wants to travel, but for whatever reason, they're scared to. So as Tom and I and Danielle and the other leaders of the hub, we sit here and we say, okay, how can we help you get to that point and then be ready when that point comes? So I want to shift, because we've only got 20 minutes left of the discussion, and this is really the point that I want to get to. Okay, we talked through some of the reasons. We talked through what some of the starting guns might be. We talked through what we know about our consumers. Now, what can we do as an organization that maybe you can't do as a solo agent or someone can't do as a solo supplier? But what can we do as an organization together to arm you, to improve customer relationships, to get them daydreaming about travel when they feel comfortable, to arm you when your phones light up like Christmas trees and you've got resources available to you? How can we work together to get to that point? What can we do? And Tom, I think it might be important to preview a little bit the Wayfair wandering program that we're working on. Can you touch on a little bit about the type of thing to get people's wheels turning that we can do as a group?
Yeah, sure. So Pat and I have been brainstorming on this, and we want obviously to work with all of you to get the best thoughts, the best ideas, and the best practices, because I think collectively we are much smarter than Pat and I are individually. So no disrespect, Pat.
Oh, it's okay. It's very true.
But one of the things was that one of the challenges we have right now, Nolan talked about consumer confidence and talked about just understanding the protocols and things like that. And so one of the things we talked about is that what if on the hub, along with our hub stars and some of our key hub members, what if we produced what we're calling Wander Wisely or Wander Safely? Basically, some either video vignettes or some materials that you can use, that consumers can use, to very quickly and easily understand what it takes to travel. I don't know about you guys, but I just had some clients go to Jamaica for the first time last week, and I have some other people leaving now. And if you're an agent or you're a consumer and you do not know the process by which you have to follow to go to Jamaica, you are frustrated, you are worried, and you're not sure that you really even want to go. And what if through Wander Wisely, Wander Safely, whatever we call it, we provide some tools that all agents can use, that consumers can easily digest, that says, hey, you know what? If I want to go to Jamaica, if I want to go to St. Lucia, or now there's new policies in Dominican Republic, when can I go to Hawaii, and what do I need to do? If we can be the resource to develop those types of materials, would that be a value? Something that's in plain speak that helps both agents and consumers understand where things are at. We keep it updated, and it's a usable tool for everyone that, as Nolan said, builds some confidence and knocks down some of the obstacles.
Now, Sarah mentioned something that I think is interesting as we try and make sure that we're ready for the gold rush when it happens. I'm just going to call it a gold rush because it sounds great. Sarah, you mentioned CRM and getting yourself organized. What are you using now, or are you using anything now?
I'm all over the place.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Right. Yeah. I can't find the right fit. I'm all over the place. So that was one of my goals during COVID, being home and, not being as busy, was to set myself up, because I've lost my assistant, or I don't have any employees.
Right.
Is to figure out something that worked well and a new system and get myself organized. And I haven't done it yet.
So if we were to do maybe a CRM seminar, or basically here are the options on the market, which one works for you, or maybe create a mastermind group of people that are using client base or other, so that way you can learn from one another, because getting ourselves organized is one of the things. And right now is the perfect time to do, because what else do we have going
I've
on?
had since March, and it's when I'll do it tomorrow, and you just don't do it. So
would that be the type of thing that you would consider?
Absolutely. I think some sort of focused training, because I'm more of a visual person.
Yeah.
Click here, do this, put that, and I just can't seem to get motivated or through. And I've tried a bunch, and I just haven't found the right fit. So,
well, we've got some great feedback in the chat, and I'm not sure if Molly will come on and talk. I just asked her to unmute, but Molly
I've tried a few in the chat. I have my reasons for some I do and don't like. But yeah, it's a goal. But that would be something I think would be super helpful. So if you had somebody from a CRM company who maybe was willing to do a training class, or a one-on-one, with a group of us who maybe need to go to the next step or to learn something, that would be helpful.
Now, this would be interesting, Tom. It would be cool if maybe we have a group inside the hub for each of the CRMs. So if you were a part of one of the CRMs and you had questions, you could jump in the group and ask the host, who happens to be from the CRM company. Good for them, good for us, and a way to get some really targeted support. That's really great. Lori Gold, you were just sharing something about pictures and other types of resources. Can you jump in? Oh, wait, Molly unmuted. Molly, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Tell us about the CRM that you were commenting on.
Well, I've used ClientBase since 2004, so it has been my backbone. If I didn't have it, I probably wouldn't have an office today. It can do a little bit of everything, and it does take time to get all the data in there. It'll do a lot more than I even use it for. It does cost, so you've got to look at how it works for you. I also use the accounting back office with it, so the two databases are actually the same database. So if I invoice something in front office, it shows up in back office, and so all of it is integrated together. There are people you can get that will help you with the accounting part of it. So it's just one of those things where you've really got to kind of stick your neck out there, but it's awesome for invoicing. And Sarah, if you wanted to look at it sometime with me, I would be more than happy to do a Zoom call or something like that with you to let you look at it.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Molly. I appreciate that. All right, Lori, can you follow up on what I started to ask about? And I didn't see that Molly unmuted to the last second, so sorry about that. You were sharing some thoughts about shared resources, photos, that sort of thing?
Yeah, because, Susan said that she can't travel right now, and I'm sure a lot of other people can't or won't or aren't for whatever reason, and that's totally fair. But a lot of agents are traveling and wouldn't mind sharing their experience and pictures, updates of what's going on at resorts. So to be able to share that with other agents so that they can use that with their clients.
That's a great idea. I could see a giant Dropbox or a giant Google Drive where if you've got photos from a certain resort, it could be dropped into a shareable drive that we all have access to. That would be a great way to leverage something like this. What were you going to say, Tom?
I was going to say just basically the same point you were making, and that is just, what would be your thoughts on the best way to do that? Because, there's places within the hubs and each of the topics where we could create a spot for those photos to go. There's a Google Drop. If you all wanted, we could build an Instagram page specifically for the hub and call it Hub Instapics or something like that. Basically an Instagram page that only we knew about, that we could access So that could be the place to go. But it'd be great to hear from you guys what the best source of that would be and how you'd like to access it in any one of those three ways.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Maybe something we can get done. I want to poke on something that's come up in a couple of different ways, and it's been touched on earlier in the conversation. And Jennifer's mentioning it in the chat. I can't get a hold of the suppliers that I need to get a hold of, even if they're not my direct BDM. And I had a thought, and you'll have to tell me because I'm the simpleton. I'm like caveman lawyer. I'm just a caveman. I'm just a lawyer, right? Remember that bit? God, I'm old today. Anyway, I'm not one of you. I'm just the idea guy. But I'm going to say, okay, what if there was like a switchboard? Like the hub had the ability, like John DiOrio's guy's not getting back to you. So we have the ability to get a hold of John saying, hey, John, your guy's not getting back to Susan, call her. Like if we had a switchboard idea where you could throw up the bat signal or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of what I was kind of collaborating in my head when I put that in the chat. Get the main guy, the head cheese in charge. And then maybe if there's somebody not really doing their job, because I do know that they've let a lot of people go. Understandably, we've had to let people go. We're on short hours, and I understand it. However, we all are having to do our jobs as well. I know Lori, she's not able to do travel, but she's still out there hustling. And she's not only hustling for herself, she's out there hustling for us as well. So there's things that I feel like that in the hub that like this, for instance, that we could maybe find a really good group of top suppliers like John, which I don't have a problem with Virgin because they're amazing, but that we could contact and just say, hey, we can't get a hold of so-and-so, like at Hard Rock, Oshtembi, people that we could contact and just reach out to them and say, hey, is there any way that we could probably, because I know I do a lot of weddings. I know Sarah Klein does a lot of weddings. Just because there is a short window that if we do not get back with these brides or these vacations, they'll go somewhere else.
Yep.
There's travel agents on every corner. So it's just an idea.
Another idea that came from that is a couple of times entry requirements and some of the documentation rules and what's the latest on X. Something Tom and I kicked around, and we're just building in the open, right? So don't hold us to this. We're just brainstorming. Safe place. This is a safe place. Tom, do you remember when we were talking about having a hub virtual assistant on standby? So if someone needs, hey, what are the entry requirements right now in Jamaica, right? So, okay, send it to us, and we've got someone on standby to go look up that information, source it correctly, and get right back to the agent. Because the nice thing with virtual assistants, as many of you know, we could have someone on duty technically around the clock with a way to get a hold of them whenever you need something, as though we have our own research assistant standing by. That's something where, as the hub goes from, where are we at now, Tom, 80 members or whatever, to 500 to 1,000 members, that's very efficient for us to pay for and a great user benefit for folks like you. So that's something that's interesting. I want to bring John Tarkowski on. He dropped in a bunch of comments on the chat, but didn't get a chance to come on. So John, you've been taking all this in, you've been adding some stuff to the chat. What do you think about all this? And are you kind of vibing with what we're talking about, how we can serve everyone?
Yeah. I talked to Tom a little bit yesterday, just coming from the supplier background and things, that we can do to get some business back. And I've been away from it for a couple months, but I've been following what you guys are doing on the hub, and I think you got a heck of an opportunity here with this great group of agents and a very powerful group. And when I was on the supplier side, we tried to use advisory boards as much as we could to figure out, what the clients were saying, what the clients were doing. Now, Randy mentioned he's reaching out to 40 people. I think that's absolutely critical right now, reaching out to your clients and then getting that feedback back to the suppliers, because what's going on the supplier side is they are just having a lack of resources in general. I mean, they're bleeding funds. They've just been refunding for the last 5 months, as you guys have been as well. And they've had to lay off a lot of people. So they're just very short on resources. So things that they used to be able to do, they probably can't do anymore. And I think it's critical that you're giving them that feedback to say, all right, people have mentioned, hey, people aren't going to travel until a vaccine or the election, but you guys have a business to run and you need some clients traveling now, right? And I think there are some people willing to travel now. The issue is, I think that many are just like, where do I start? What do I have to do? What tests do I need? What documentation do I need? So, doing videos on that, if that's something the hub can do, that's great, but also challenge your suppliers to say, hey, listen, this is a tool that could really help us get those people that are on the fence or willing to travel. They're just not sure where to even start. And if the last thing they want to do is get stuck in destination, not have the right stuff, get sent home, or lose a $3,000 vacation. And I think if you have easy tools for them, whether suppliers do it or whether you do that on the hub, I think that'd be critical to get those people that are willing to travel, just that little sense, a little push to say, hey guys, it is this easy, this is all you need, and trust us as the advisor. We can tell you and walk you through the steps, and you can be on your way in 2 weeks. I think there are some people out there, depending on where you're from. Me in the Midwest here, there's people traveling to Mexico, friends I know all the time. Their kids are traveling there. So people are traveling. It's just in this community at least. So I think that's a really critical element, and really just communicate as much as you can with those suppliers, because they're out there, again, with very minimal amount of resources, and they need some direction as to what tools can they help you with, and the minimal tools they have or resources they have, make sure that's a good use of their time and they're giving you what you need rather than them trying to guess, oh, I think this is what the travelers are saying. Just communicating with them as much as possible. And it sounds like it's been tough for some of you, but reach out to your BDMs, reach out to the vice presidents that you may know of, and let them know where you're coming from.
What if, and again, I don't know what I'm talking about, someone, this might be the wrong thing to say, but if I'm hearing you correctly, one of the most powerful things we can give back to suppliers is the heartbeat of the agents, what
Absolutely.
Our customers are saying. So Tom, what if we got the suppliers that are together into a mastermind group or into a weekly or monthly phone call or recording of here's what we're hearing from our agents. So we then could give them an efficient way to understand what's going on, because they don't want to be bogged down with coming to weekly meetings. They don't want really long reports. They want what's going on, what's the pulse, what's the beat. And if we didn't, let's say Lori and Jennifer and Jen and others are giving us information. We don't have to say Lori Gold's people say XYZ, but if we hear reports from the agents and we can give the information they're seeking, almost like a consumer confidence index, if you will, of here's what's going on, how can we give that to, it could even be a way that we expose ourselves to suppliers that aren't even members yet. This is a service of, this is like the S&P 500. This is the state of what we're hearing. Because if, John, if you're saying the pulse of what consumers are saying is one of the most valuable things we could provide, we're positioned in a way that we can do that.
Absolutely.
And we have the resources.
Absolutely. And that's what I was telling Tom. I said that is absolutely critical. If I was still on that supplier side, and someone came to me and said, hey, we talked to 500 of our best clients, and here's what they're telling us. That stuff's invaluable. And they're going to absolutely love that, reach out to you guys on that, and hopefully develop some things that help you, get those people on the fence traveling. And that's probably the most critical thing for all of you right now. Not only the agencies here, but the suppliers as well.
Well, no problem on that. Nolan will have that whipped up by the end of the week, and it'll be fantastic.
Perfect.
So, Nolan, we need to talk after this meeting because we need you to be brilliant for us. So that's great. John, thanks for jumping in. I appreciate it. You added a lot of stuff to the comments. I wanted to make sure that we heard what you had to say. So as you can see from this call, the think tank is where we want to cut the BS. We want to take action. We don't want to just look into a Zoom camera and come up with, wouldn't it be great if? No, what can we do right now to help you? Because we are uniquely positioned because we're not selling anything. You're already our members. How can we advocate for you? So thank you to everyone for dropping in some thoughts today. And I just want to reserve the last few minutes before we go. All right, so we've lit this fire. What haven't we talked about? What else would you like to see? Because I like this building on the actual feedback from the suppliers and the agents that are on the call. What haven't we talked about? What would you like to see, and how can we help? Tom, what haven't we covered that you want to see? Is there anything else we haven't asked that you'd like to ask?
I think we did cover a lot of ground, and thank you all so much for your participation, because, it really does, validate some of the conversations that we have, because, ultimately for Pat and I, you know, we don't want to run around doing stuff just to do stuff, right? That's not the focus of this. We want to do what's valuable, what's usable, what's scalable to the members, what ultimately is going to fulfill the mission of the hub. So thank you so much, because, you know, I think there's a lot that we can do. As Pat said, you know, we're agnostic. We're not a consortia. We're not a host. There's members of all different consortia in here. There's suppliers. There's destinations from all over the country and the world soon, and we should be able to leverage that, and we can pull through the best ideas and the best practices and combine it into a plan, which is the exact thing that we want to do, so that moving forward on next Thursday's call, you know, we're going to build upon what we said today, right? We're going to talk about, you know, what's the next step in the process, and how can we build upon that. So thank you all so much. But I think great job and a great start.
I can't help but share this, because something came to me while you were mentioning what you were saying. I really like the idea, and again, this might be the dumbest thing of all time. I really like the idea of creating something like the Hub Index, like a nationwide travel confidence survey that we supply to the agents. And we don't have to have the agents send it out to their customers. We just want the agents' feedback of what they're hearing from their customers. And we create a weekly report called the Hub Index of Travel Confidence. I mean, something like that we could do and probably get some agents to participate in if we make it easy and proper data collection, Nolan. We could really make this great. But that's just something that comes to mind, Nolan. Yeah. It sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's out of this, we kind of sort of talked about the wander wisely, how do we educate, how do we build confidence, how do we pull together all of the trips and all of the intelligence and all the experiences that people are having. Randy's going to El Dorado Royale tomorrow, right? So how do we maximize Randy's experience and the content that Randy creates? How do we put that to work for us, right? And how do we use that as a tool to say to other people, hey, you know what? Randy and his Corona breakout group are at El Dorado Royale, and they're having a fantastic time, and it's okay if you go there too. In fact, let's get started right now booking your trip. And that's extremely valuable, because that we all know the value of the FOMO, right? People have been pent up. People see other people doing it. They start to feel better. They're like, hey, you know what? If they can do that, I can do that. And we have to take advantage of those and look at all the agents across the country that are traveling. What if we could find a way to better leverage that in a more consistent and a more impactful way? People do a great job on social media, but again, it's like we talked about at the very beginning, it's very fragmented and it's very one-off, and it's not being driven by necessarily a strategy. And if there was a way to get more out of that and leverage it better and be more mindful of how to utilize it, I think that would be one great tool that we could utilize as well.
And think of the other things that we've come up with on this call. Like, I'm salivating to hop off the call and get to work. And I just cannot thank you all enough for your feedback and understanding what we're going for here, because for us to be a service to you is what this is all about. So for all the folks to give this much time to help us brainstorm, I feel a little guilty for taking all this time, but thank you so very much, because that's why we're here. So here's what we have on the dock is we have coming up on Tuesday, we will have another edition of the Hub Morning Show that airs at 11:30 a.m. Central. We are also working on the manifest, and the tech nerd behind the manifest, Jennifer Buchholz, is on the call today. And Jennifer, I'm going to give you 30 seconds because we're over time. But I need you to give us the 30-second version of what the manifest is going to be, because you've been building it from scratch.
So it's a super exciting place where all the suppliers or agents, if you're aware of deals and discounts, promos, and events, can put all that stuff into one-stop shopping. Events calendar is in there. It's fully integrated. It's a one-click away. When you're in the Hub social network, you're going to jump right to it. And it's pretty fun and exciting, and I've been really excited to be a part of the project.
Yeah, and you've done a great job building it, and incredible. She doesn't look it, but she's such a data nerd. It's unbelievable. So thank you for being our resident Hub nerd. We love you. And it's going to be a great tool for us when we're done. Just another way that we're trying to make it worth make it worth your while to be here. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Tom, any last words of wisdom before we wrap this bad boy?
Well, I can't. Hopefully, I'll see you guys next Thursday on the Think Tank. See you on the morning show on Tuesday. We have, as they say in show business, Pat would say we're efforting a really good guest, a really good relevant guest for Tuesday morning, and so we're just working on getting that booked. But way more great things to come. Great start, and you have our commitment that we're going to think about what needs to happen in our industry. We're going to push the envelope. We're going to push the suppliers and the agents, and we're going to do it together. And hopefully from that, we end up in a better place, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months from now, by utilizing all the brain power that we all bring. So thank you all so very much.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. That wraps up Travel Think Tank for Thursday, the 27th of August. Unbelievable. It's already August. I'm Pat Miller. That's Tom. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.